Hi everyone, I'm Carol Keller from Illinois in the US, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator coming to you today with one of our videos from our Global SU Vlog Hop. On our hop, we have demonstrators from around the world who will be demonstrating projects using a card sketch. That is our theme for December. So we hope you'll join us by hopping along to each demonstrator's YouTube channel. The way you do it is after you watch the first video, go down to the comments, click the link, and that will take you to the next place on the hop. I'm going to turn my camera around so that we can get started. Okay, here is the sketch that we are using for our global vlog hop. This time it's a sketch challenge, and this is the sketch. So we have the measurements in both inches and in centimeters. So if you are working, whichever one you're working for, you'll find them here, but you can also adjust. I did actually use these measurements on mine, but you don't have to. You can adjust based on the size of your card. So we'll get that out of the way, and I'm going to show you the first sketch, or the first card, not sketch, that we are going to do today, which is this one, which really follows the design very closely. All I did was move the sentiment, but follows it very closely. So this is our card in our envelope. So I'm going to put that to the side and we'll get started. I used a basic white card base for all three of the cards that I'm making today. And then for the first layer, mine is actually the whole front of the card. So it is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 or 10.5 by 14.9 centimeters. So I already guess I did adjust the sketch a little bit because I didn't want a border. And I'm going to use my multi-purpose liquid glue to adhere this layer, partly because I do like to use it when it covers the whole layer so I can make sure that it's lined up exactly. And also sometimes when using an embossing folder like I did on this piece of Flirty Flamingo, it helps it to kind of get into the nooks and crannies. And this embossing folder is the Painted Textures, which is probably my favorite one in the catalog currently. So we're just going to line that up and press it. And I'm going to show you on one of my cards, I actually used the reverse side of the embossing folder. So you'll have to let me know what you think, but this is the front side. Love this so much. And then next I cut out some pattern paper from our Pattern Party Designer Series paper, which is a host pack that's got a ton of cardstock in it. So the measurements are the same as what you saw on the sketch. This paper is just a smidge. I may cut that down just a little bit. There's a little bit of white showing on that end. So I must have cut the cardstock off a little bit. So I will cut that down at the end. And then I'm going to put these on. I'm going to make sure I center them. And again, all three of these come from that Pattern Party Designer Series paper pack, and they are black and white prints on the other side. Very versatile. And the first thing I'm going to do is grab my silver Simply Elegant trim. It comes in silver and gold. And I basically decided I'm going to put some down right so that it covers all three of my little presents, my little packages. So I'm going to grab a glue dot, and I'm going to kind of tuck it underneath where I think it will go. In fact, I may take 2 glue dots just to make sure that it's nice and secure. And this one is easy. It's a little more challenging to do the other one, but I'm going to kind of eyeball where I would like it and place it there underneath. So there's several ways you can do it. You can tuck it underneath afterwards, but that's what I decided to do. And now I'm going to take my Stampin' Seal, and we will adhere that first layer, or that first gift, I should say. Again, kind of paying attention to where I'll have an even amount of space on the bottom and the top are pretty even and centered on either side. And now for this one, I've got the adhesive on, But again, I'm going to sort of figure out where I want that to go, leaving a little bit of a lip that I can tuck underneath. All right, so now I've got adhesive on the back of this, and I'm going to put it where I know I want to place it. Actually, I'm going to move this way. There we go. And then just kind of lift it up and put it behind. There's good adhesive on the back, so that should be good. And it's a little bit loose, but that's why I put the sentiment over to help hold it in place, and the bow will help too. So we're going to make a little bow, again with that Simply Elegant trim. And I debated using the gold. I think either one would definitely work. We'll cut that. And then we're going to put a glue dot behind it. And I'm going to roll the glue dot a little bit, kind of squeeze it so that it doesn't show as much. And I love this because this project is such a good way. This sketch is a great way to use up your scraps, because I just have my little pieces of designer series paper, and I literally did use scraps for almost everything since I have used it for other things. And what you want to do is make sure, oh, these are pretty good. Make sure that the tails, you can't pull them so that it won't come apart. But since I already took off a glue dot, I am going to put that underneath just for extra reinforcement and hide it behind where everything comes together. Yeah, maybe we'll trim this just a smidge. And then for the sentiment, I have a strip of Granny Apple Green. I believe it fits the, well, it's thinner than the measurement, so this is, I think, a 1/2 inch or about 1 centimeter. And then I've got my Happy Birthday sentiment from the Artistically inked stamp set. And I've got my Granny Apple Green ink as well. So I'll just ink it up. And then all I did, oh, and I'm going to use for the inside, Love You Friend, which comes from the Shaded Summer stamp set. I'm going to do that on the inside. Oops. Wrong one. That one's done already. And on the envelope, I'm going to do Happy Birthday as well in the corner on the front. You could also do it on the back, on the flap. That aside. And that's it for our stamping. And so to finish the sentiment, I'm cutting it just a little bit over, maybe 1/2 inch or so. And we're going to cut a strip down the middle. Actually, I'm going to cut it a little shorter than that. And to make my flag, I just cut down the middle. And then from each corner to that middle. So I've got an even flag, or nearly even. And then this I put on with mini dimensionals. Make sure you use enough so that it doesn't sag, that it's even all the way across. We'll take the backings off, and then we'll simply center this between the bottom 2 presents. And again, it fits right over to help hold that trim down. I think that's going to be pretty good. And that's it. That is our card. That's card number 1. Move this just a little bit. Card number 1. For the second card, you know, I really wanted to think outside the box for, obviously on the first card, these look like presents, like gifts. But on this one, I was going more with a wedding cake theme. So Here's what I did with the envelope, a little stamping on the front, and then decorated the back with some excess or leftover DSP. And for this one, I used the Pretty Flowers embossing folder, and this is the one that I actually turned around and used the back of it because I liked it just as well as the front. So I did turn that over, but I also wanted to see what this one looks like. This is the Ornate Floral 3D embossing folder. So I am going to use the front side rather than the back, but I wanted to see what the difference was. I couldn't decide between the two. So just like with the last card, I cut it to the size of my card front. And I'm going to use my multi-purpose liquid glue to adhere it to the card front. And yeah, somehow they're off a little bit. I've got a little bit more on the bottom. And like I said, I will trim that at the end. Nobody will be the wiser, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. As long as the top and the two sides are even, which they are, I'll just trim that little excess at the end. And then for this one, I used the Expressions in Ink Designer Series paper, but I also, so the measurements of the actual Designer Series paper follow what was on the template, but I also cut gold layers with the gold foil paper to make it, I was again thinking more in terms of a wedding cake. So I'm going to grab my stamp and seal again. And I did purposely use Designer Series paper from the set that all had the gold foiling in it so that it would bring out the background. And again, we're going to center, but now these, we need to leave less of a border at the top and the bottom because with the matting around the Designer Series paper, there's less room to work with. So we'll leave a little bit of a mat, or I should say a little bit of an edge. Okay, so now we've got our wedding cake. And for the sentiment and also for the inside, I am using, I've got a 1-inch strip, again, of basic white. Again, a scrap. Love the idea of using scraps for this. So we've got our Best Wishes stamp and our flowers, and we are going to stamp Best Wishes in polished pink. And we're going to leave a little room to stamp the flowers and to punch it out. Then we'll bring in Pale Papaya. And I just got as close as I could to the Best Wishes. And we're going to do the same thing on the inside. This time I'll pick the right card. And do the opposite corners. Just want to make sure that the ink doesn't get on the edges. A little bit of adhesive there. And then the same thing with the front of the envelope, so that everything coordinates. And that is it for our stamping. We'll leave that envelope nearby because we'll be using that. But first, I have my Lovely Labels Pick-a-Punch. I really like this one. I like the fanciness of the design. And this time, instead of putting it in this way like I normally do, I'm going to flip it over since I've already stamped, because I want to make sure that I don't see the flowers. And I don't, so then I know. And I'm centering it, so I know I'm not going to cut off the flowers. And then my little trick, and I did not come up with this, but it comes in handy. And actually, you know what? I think I'm going to cut it down just a little bit more. I want less of an edge. So I'm just going to do this and try it one more time. because I want it to be really close actually to that best wishes. So we're going to try that again. Feed it in. Yeah, and I still don't see the perfect. I still didn't see the flower. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I want it to be pretty close to the edge, so I don't want it to be super long. So part of that flower is underneath here. Then this is how you get an even border on both sides, is I take that little piece that I punched out the first time, and we put just a little mark on the outside edge, because that tells me then where to cut it, so that when I put it in the punch, it will punch where I would like it to. So we're going to take that out of the way, put this back in, and again I'm going to turn it over because I may lose some of the flower, but I'm a little less concerned. Yeah, I'm going to lose a little bit of them, but I think I'm going to be okay with that. And there we go, because I don't want it to be too long. I don't want it to cover up the cake too much. And then I took a strip of the gold. So, and actually that's right, I cut this strip to be just under an inch, maybe 15/16, and this may be a smidge over an inch. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put it in here and feed it through. Make sure that it's centered. And then we're going to adhere this with Stampin' Seal. Making a little bit of a border there. So now that I have a little bit, oh yeah, on each end, which is what I was going for. I didn't have it here, so I made bigger borders. Now I can make a smaller one. And I'm going to do the same thing. I want that border to be very close, about like that, I would say. Do the same thing, make my mark on the outside, and then snip it off right about at the mark, and feed it into the punch again. And I can feed it right side up because I'm confident that it's going to punch where I want it to. And I didn't center it. It's a little bit crooked, but I think not too bad. And so that again is going to go here, and this I'm going to also pop up with dimensionals. Oh yeah, I like that though. Move it down just a little bit so there's not gold on gold. And that is card number 2. Like I said, I am going to trim this off, probably just with my scissors, we'll see. But that is card number 2. Oh, and that's right, we have one more thing to do. I have a scrap of the Designer Series paper to put on that envelope that we stamped. I love to do this. It's my favorite thing lately. I do it with many of my cards, is put some Designer Series paper or DSP that I've used in the project on the back flap of the envelope, because I just think it looks so pretty and just finishes it off so professionally. So I'm going to line up the top and the right hand side, and then press those, get the glue to adhere just a little bit, and then we'll cut around the edge. And now we have card number 2 all finished. And last but not least, card number 3. And for this one, I decided not to use an embossing folder. And I did cut and use a border. Move that out of the way. And for this one, I used the Eden's Garden stamp set because I wanted to kind of, I didn't use any Designer Series paper because I wanted to kind of make my own. I love to do that. I love to stamp and I had a vision of stamping on each of the sections, which is what I did here. But first I started with, again, a basic white card base, and this is the Evergreen cotton paper, and this is actually available for just a short period of time till January 3rd, I believe, or while supplies last. But I love this. It's very thin. It's matte on one side and shiny on the other, so I chose to use the shiny side. I cut this to be my first layer just like it is in the instructions, so 4 by 5 1/4 or 10 by 14.5, I believe, or 14.4 centimeters. And then all I did was crinkle it up, folded it and refolded it a couple of times just to give it that texture. And then for this, I also am using my multi-purpose liquid glue because that's the easiest thing. I tried to put a nice thin layer of glue because I was worried it would show through, but it really did not. And you just need enough. The glue is very strong. I've got it around the edges. And we'll center it to leave that border about like that. And then press the glue. So it gives you that nice texture without actually using an embossing folder, although you could if you would like. And then for the 3, I'm going to bring in a scrap to stamp on, since I will be stamping off the paper, as you'll see. So we're going to start with the big one, and I'm using fresh Freesia for that. And originally, I was going to just sort of stamp in the corner, but then I decided to basically center it on the piece of cardstock. So you see it comes off just a bit. Then I used it on the inside and on the envelope, so we'll do that as well. Bring in the card. Ink it up again and do it in the corner. And the same thing on the envelope. Make sure we've got the front here and it's not upside down. And there's our fresh Freesia. For the next layer, we are using soft succulent with one of the leaves, again, from that Eden's Garden stamp set. And I just went in from one side and re-inked, and then went to the other side. And you'll see it looks darker than this one, but once it dries, it will lighten right up. And last but not least, we've got Evening Evergreen, and I just love this little stamp. I thought it was so cute. So this one I did 3 times. Once from each side, and once in the middle, going the other way. And then we'll leave this to do our sentiment. This is a scrap that's 3/4 of an inch wide because I wanted to make it basically just wide enough for the sentiment. So I am, just in case, going to bring that piece of paper back in, just in case it overlaps it, but hopefully it won't. Another thing I would like to show you too is to make sure that your sentiment is straight. Line it up with your lines on your grid paper, and I can see it's going up and a little bit to the right. So I'm going to do it, yeah, just down just a bit. And it's centered and nice and straight. And then I purposely went over to one side because I'm going to cut that down in a minute, but first we'll stamp on the inside as well. And then for the inside, we're going to use the Evening Evergreen for the sentiment. And then we're going to switch back to the soft succulent. for that cute little leaf again. All right, and our stamping is done. So we're going to just mat this and we're going to cut it down. And I like to use my trimmer because I like to be exact. But we're going to cut it down probably on both sides to get it close to the edge of the words. So I'll cut just a little more off of this side as well. And I do have a scrap of Evening Evergreen. Oh, look at that, and it's going to fit perfectly. And it's left over from this, so it's a little narrower, so maybe I'll cut off one end, but that will work nicely. Again, love using those scraps. So we'll put it to one end to make an even border. And then we'll trim. And I'll be brave and just use my snips. Hope that it's straight. A little smidge more. Good. All right. So let's start assembling on our card. We'll do these first. And you can see that this time I left a border in between, and so we don't have a cake and we don't have presents. We just have 3 different stamped images of different sizes. And then for the sentiment, I really didn't want to cover too much of this up, so I moved it over to the left because I didn't want the ribbon to be in the way. And for the ribbon, I have the open weave ribbon in both Evening Evergreen and Fresh Freesia. And I just made a little loop about like that and cut them. And then put them together with glue dots, adhering all of the layers, kind of starting with the back between the Evening Evergreen and the Fresh Freesia and about the middle. And then a couple on the back to adhere to the card. I put it about like that so that the glue dots are hidden by the sentiment. And then I'm going to move this over a little bit because I'm going to make sure I have a glue dot here so that it holds nice and tight. I'll actually put a couple on each end instead of using my Stampin' Seal because I feel like these are stronger. And then we'll put a couple on the other end. And one in the middle. Maybe 2. So that again, it's nice and strong. I think we might have a third on there. But that is all right. Strong is the name of the game. And we center it over to the left in between the 2. Oh yeah. And then last but not least, on this one we've got some bling, and you can use the 2021 to 2023 in color jewels, but I didn't have enough. So I found what worked just as well as the Holiday Rhinestone Basic Jewels. So that's what I'm going to use. I've got another pack of those wonderful rhinestones on the way, but they're not here yet. So I just use, I think this is Pool Party and maybe Shaded Spruce, I'm not sure, but I feel like they worked really well and they coordinated nicely. So I just used some of the smaller ones, and I wanted several. I wanted some throughout on the white spaces. So that's what I did. And then one more, maybe over here this time, so that it draws your eye around the card. And that is card number 3. I hope you liked them all. I'm going to bring them back in one more time so that you can see. And these are all of them. We'll move this one out of the way. These are all 3 of the cards that we made today from that same sketch. So again, a wedding cake, a birthday, a stack of birthday gifts, and where I've made my own designer series paper. So all sorts of different looks from that same sketch. I'll bring it in one more time so that you can see. So again, this one had a border. I used it only on this one. The sentiment was on this side. I used it there once, and I alternated the sizes of it. And for the string, I used it just on one and ribbon on another and nothing on the other. Although we could add a little bit of ribbon too, maybe some polished pink there. I think that would work too, add a little bit. And you know, you could always add bling, but I wanted to change them up. I wanted them to all be different, some with embossing folders, one without. So I hope you enjoyed them. I hope you are enjoying our Global SU Vlog Hop. To hop to the next participant, just go to the description and the link for the next one will be there. And we hope to see you again next month. And in the meantime, visit our YouTube channels for lots of other ideas. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.